Okay, I have fought the urge to garden as long as I possibly can. So I've got this small tray that we're going to put out. I have seconds of all of this, so if something comes along and damages it, it's not a big deal. So we're going to create 2 more little cottage gardens. Remember my raised beds, I like to overfill and have like a cottage garden look. And then of course I plant like my regular things like tomatoes, peppers, things like that into my in-ground garden. So these are the 2 cottage gardens that I'm going to plant today. They are raised beds. One of them is an old feed trough that got a rusted bottom in it, and so now I have turned it into a planter. And then I have just this regular oval raised bed that I got off of Amazon several years ago. I absolutely love both of these. I actually like the deeper depth better because they tend to just retain moisture better, especially here in Florida. So plants tend to do better in these, but I like the smaller ones as well. You just have to water more frequently. So my dirt is a little bit chunky. We just amended these several weeks ago, and I haven't worked this dirt or anything, so I'm just going to go through and loosen up this soil. If you don't have one of these hula hose, they are awesome. I have the short one and the long one, and I use them all the time, but it's great for just breaking up like this clumpy dirt. And then just before I plant, I'm going to go ahead and wet the soil. I always wet the soil before I plant anything or put any type of seeds into the soil. Like I've said before, it helps to keep the seeds from being dispersed. And in this case, it just adds the moisture. Since these are little seedlings, I don't want to go in and flood them with a ton of water because they still are a little bit fragile. So this will just keep me from having to go in and water directly on top of the seedlings today. So today in these 2 beds, the main things that we are planting are eggplant and their companion plants. So an important thing to consider when you're planting in smaller raised beds like this is companion planting. Companion planting is basically planting things that benefit each other. I am going to throw caution to the wind today and plant 2 things together that do not benefit each other, and let me kind of explain. So I'm going to plant a ground cherry today in with my eggplants, and the reason that I'm willing to do this is the only reason that they aren't companion plants is that they attract the same type of pest. So the pest that would come after an eggplant and a ground cherry likes both plants. How I'm going to combat this is by adding in basil, nasturtiums, and a marigold. So I'm not really too worried about it. I've never grown a ground cherry before. I don't even know if I'm going to like them. So once I get that first fruit, if none of us like a ground cherry, I'm going to pull it out anyway, and then the eggplant can survive. Like I said, they just like the same type of pest. They're not going to pull nutrients from the other one and make the other one where it doesn't grow. They may just both attract, say, squash bugs or leaf-footed bugs, or last year I had Japanese beetles. So that is mainly how they attract the same type of pest. That is why they are not suggested to plant next to each other. I'm going to plant enough companion plants in this that hopefully the nasturtiums, the marigolds, and the cinnamon basil deter the pests that would come and attack them anyway. So in this lower bed, I am actually going to plant my marigold. I do not know if this is a bush marigold. I do not know if it's a Kilimanjaro white marigold or an African marigold. At some point, all of my marigold tags got taken out of all of my marigold seed cells, so I'm not 100% sure which one I am planting here today. So I'm going to plant it down in this lower bed just in case it's an African. It looks to be one to me because you'll see it's really long and lanky because they tend to get about waist high. So I'm going to plant it down in this lower bed so that it doesn't overwhelm this higher bed. Remember, in cottage garden style, we are planting things at different heights. So you will have some things that are low and some things that are high, some things that hang over the edge. I absolutely love cottage style garden beds. So I'm going to plant this long purple eggplant in this bed. I'm going to plant it kind of in the middle. And then the other thing that I'm going to plant is some cinnamon basil. I overseeded my cinnamon basil, and so there are a ton of sprouts in this. So I'm just going to divide this in half. Cinnamon basil only gets about 18 inches tall. I always give it about 10 more inches than that, so it could get up to 30 inches tall, because sometimes I think they don't tell the full truth on the back of the seed packages, because I tend to have plants that get a lot larger than that. So I'm going to I think I'm going to set it kind of in the middle of these two. And then I'm going to put some nasturtiums around the edge so that they hang over the front. And then this is my long purple eggplant. I'm going to take one of these markers that I made a few days ago and put down in this one. I only plant one plant of each type of eggplant, and I have 2 plants started, so that's why I'm not super worried about starting these and possibly getting cold weather that may affect them from growing, because I have more inside that I technically don't need. One of each type of eggplant is significant for our family of 5. If you've ever grown an eggplant, they are heavy producers, and you only need a couple eggplants for each meal, especially the big black beauty eggplants. Like, you literally need one to feed our family of 5. So, and then I'm just going to take my nasturtiums. This is the Alaska mix. They're very pretty, and there's lots of different colors in it. And so I think it'll complement the cinnamon basil. This actually gets like little shoots of flowers on it, and the greenery is really pretty in cut flower arrangements, but it's also a spice as well. So it's going to be a dual purpose plant in my garden. And then, of course, the bold, beautiful purple of the long purple eggplants. Okay, so I think that's it for this front bed. Like I've told y'all before, I tend to overfill my beds and have to water a ton. I just love that overgrown cottage feel. So let's move to this higher one in the back and get it planted. So this is the one where I told y'all I'm going to throw caution to the wind, and I'm going to put a ground cherry in this, and then the bigger black beauty eggplant is going to go in here as well. So I'm going to put the black beauty on this side because the front, the eggplant, is on this side. So I'm going to put the black beauty on this side. Oh, and I think I left my shovel. And then I am actually going to plant this ground cherry right up here across the front. They look like from photos that they kind of sprawl. They're bushy, but they sprawl. They're not like tall like a tomato. So I'm going to put it on this side so that as it sprawls, it can hang over the edge, possibly. I don't know. They say these things reproduce like crazy. I'm not too worried if it gets on the ground right here because I'm going to mow it. I'm going to weed it down, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. And that's all I'm going to plant in this one. I am going to go in with a few nasturtium. I thought about I have these chamomile plants, and I'm not 100% sure what to do with all of them. And I thought about putting the chamomile plant right here in the back. And I might do that anyway. I think I am. I'm going to put this chamomile plant. I don't know if this is a companion plant for any of these. I don't know if I didn't research this. I'm just winging it. I have several of these started, and I need places to put them. So yeah, I'm just going to put this chamomile plant back here. And then again, I'm just using the Alaska nasturtium mix, and I'm going to sprinkle them across the front. Someone suggested on one of my other videos to soak the nasturtium seeds, but I like to sow seeds when it is going to be a rainy day. So like the last time I planted seeds, it was rainy for like 2 days after, and they sprouted and are producing well. So again, it's supposed to rain, I think Thursday or Friday. So I am not going to soak these seeds because the ground should stay nice and moist for the next couple of days. Okay, so we got those planted. So, and now I've got all of my plants planted. I have some companion plants, some that don't necessarily like each other, but the only thing they're going to attract is the same type of pest, so it's not that big of a deal to me. And I can't wait to see everything once it is nice and big and sprouting. I have a little bit of cinnamon basil left over where I split that plant, so let's go put this in my artichoke bed. So my plan for this bed was for it to be things that are more perennial. And so last year I had one of these that was big and metal. And when the hurricane came and it blew the roof off our barn, it came and it destroyed the metal bed. So my husband rebuilt this one with wood. I do like the wood beds, probably better than the metal beds. You do have to replace the wood beds over time, but the metal beds got damaged during the hurricane. So he rebuilt this one. My plan was for this just to be the perennial garden, but I've slowly decided that all of my raised beds, I'm going to try and put as many perennials into the raised beds as I can, and then my in-ground garden every year can be the things that come and go, annuals that come and go, things that I'm going to replant every year. Of course, things like garlic and onions that I plant in these raised beds have to be replanted every year, but they don't have to be replanted as often because they stay in for such a long period of time. They're going to stay in my perennial beds as well, and my squash will always be in, and cucumbers will always be in raised beds. But things like artichokes, all of these herbs that hopefully will come back year after year are definitely going in my raised beds. So I think this is a good spot for this cinnamon basil. It's not a super tall plant, so I don't want it to be in the middle. I usually come through and plant zinnias into the middle of this bed just because they're giant, and then everything around the edge kind of hangs over. So that is all that I am planting for today. I'm trying to do little bits here and there just in case we have one of those dips in temperature, or a harder frost than we got this morning. I haven't lost an entire garden. I did that one year. I planted my entire garden out. We got a hard freeze and a frost after our last frost date, and I lost the entire garden and had to replant it, and that was a seriously expensive mistake, and so now I'm always a little bit cautious. It's not like my tomato and my pepper plants aren't started on my back porch. So they're still growing. They're doing fine. And they'll be ready when our temperatures are finally right. There's still a few days next week where it dips down into the 40s. And then like today, I think the low on my phone said it was like 43. But when my husband and I woke up this morning, it was 39 degrees outside. So I hope that y'all enjoyed planting another cottage garden with me. I'll be back every few days as I decide what I'm willing to risk planting. And hopefully one of these days we'll get the tomatoes and the peppers and the okra and the watermelons and all that planted out in the in-ground garden. So let me know if y'all have any questions. Hopefully y'all can hear me better on this video. I put my microphone back on. I'm turning the volume up to 1,000, and I'll cut out the background noise. I'm always learning, so if you have suggestions, of course, let me know in the comments. And thank you to the person who let me know that they could not hear me, so I went back to wearing the microphone. And I will talk to y'all later.